My magical research is progressing smoothly, but there's still a lot for me to do. If I want to both maintain my own resources and protect the nearby village, I'm going to have to make some form of stabilization for my infusion crafting. But that's quite expensive though. It requires a lot of Vis to properly fabricate these items that I need. To address this issue, the easiest thing for me to do is go find a magical forest biome. I've encountered several across my wide and far travels, but the closest one will be enough. These areas tend to have a very high natural amount of Vis, as all of the chunks have over 200 pretty much. If I use up the Vis in one area, I can just break the table down and move to a different one. With that out of the way, let's actually install these stabilizers into the infusion setup. You'll need redstone inlays. They function kind of similar to redstone wire, and they need to hook up to both the stabilizers and the pedestals. Should an instability event happen, which is already far less likely just because of the extra stabilization the stabilizers add, the items won't get knocked off the pedestals or turned into flux. They can only handle one at a time, but if you have 4 of them, that should pretty much handle you for any instability event, unless you're working with a very large craft with extremely high instability. For a mid-game setup, this is definitely enough. I feel much safer already. But let's actually craft something. The electric boots of the Traveler are okay, but they're really not that great. Thankfully, I can upgrade them into nanosuit boots of the Traveler to match the rest of my armor. They have a much higher energy storage, and they also allow me to run even quicker than before. If nothing else, it means the jetpack flies faster, so that's good for me. I made that blank lesser focus last time, but I didn't actually give it any effects, so it wasn't doing anything. Let's change that. You'll require some Vis, some crystals, and some experience, and you can only hit so high of a complexity cap with the lesser focus, but for simple spells, such as a swap spell, I am well below the complexity limit. There are other ways to do this in this mod pack, but I decided to go with the swap spell, or I guess exchanging. What this does is it will take the block I click on and replace it with the block I have the spell filtered to. To filter a block, shift-right click on it. That has it selected, and if you have it in your inventory and right-click a different block, it will switch to 2 blocks. If I have Silk Touch mode on, it will extract the block as it is. Otherwise, it works like a pickaxe. Well, I guess this also works like a Silk Touch pickaxe, but that's beside the point. While finding biomes rich in Vis is easy, finding specific chunks that have extremely high concentrations is actually somewhat difficult. To circumvent this issue, I have a Thaumic Dioptra. When placed down, it shows the topographical map of the area, except instead of the terrain, it will show the amount of Vis in a given chunk. If you right-click on it, it will also show the flux concentrations in a given chunk. You can attach a comparator to it if you want to make something dependent on the amount of Vis or flux in the given chunk, but right now I don't really have a use for anything like that. To make crafting far easier though, I'd like to make a Workbench Charger. What this will do is it will draw in aura from the surrounding chunks instead of just the one that the workbench is in. This will mean that pretty much any craft that requires Vis will be doable in almost any area. You can even craft multiple items at once. But I'm just shy, so I'll need to get a discount. My boots actually give me a discount, as do my goggles. But I'll also end up making some Thaumaturge's robes. But I forgot that crafting something in the chunk uses the Vis and you have to wait for it to replenish. So I'm just going to be honest, I'm AFKing in creative until it recharges. Having to wait is enough of a punishment. Okay, now that that Workbench Charger can finally be made, let's see what it does. Well, it does exactly what I said it would do. It brings in all of the Vis from the surrounding chunks, meaning that I have over 2,000 to work with, instead of just a pitiful 300. I say that as if most crafts will never require that high of an amount, but it means that I can craft a lot of things. I can even bring this back home now. Now, because I have Silk Touch available, I can actually go into the nether and mine the nether ores with my swapping, and it will not activate the pigment or the explosions. Especially for gold, if you need a quick pick-me-up for resources, they're available here. I've begun construction of a new facility just to the north of where the other one is. I like the prospect of being closer to the water, and further away from the village. Nothing against them, but, I'm doing dangerous stuff here. If I make a nuclear reactor at some point, I don't want them anywhere near the blast radius. I guess to say what I was going for, I'll have to break character for a bit. Not that I religiously adhere to being in character in the first place. I kinda wanted a Greek-style build. Not like ancient Greece, though. I drew inspiration from Santorini in Greece. Well, I actually drew inspiration from Apitos in Sonic Unleashed, but, I wanted to use the permafrost I had for something because I have way too much of it. It's gonna look like a small set of buildings, but all of the stuff on the inside is gonna be connected. How am I going to power this new base though? If I really wanted, I could, hook up the steam power over here. But let's try something a little different. I'd like to start processing oil. Industrial Craft 2 Classic does have its own pump, but I might as well stick with the Buildcraft one just because. Because those require RF power rather than EU power, I'll need a flux generator to convert my EU over, and because this is a remote setup, it's perfect for weak power like solar and wind. When oil wells spawn over water, you'll have to be a little careful because it might rush in and get under the pump, and that'll clog the system. You'll just have to babysit it for the time being. How will I be getting this oil back though, I hear you ask? I mean, there's a more obvious, easy answer, but we're not obvious or easy, we're doing things the stupid way. Teleporters allow me to teleport fluids, items, and energy. You'll have both a sending point and a receiving point. Use a frequency transmitter on the sending end to save its ID, then load it on the other one with the right click. You can transport players like this, but you have to decide which type of teleporter you're going to use. It supports mostly the mod's own stuff, but it also works on railcraft tanks, I've heard. It won't work with things like buildcraft tanks though. It will require a fair sum of power to teleport things from one location to another. The cost is dependent on both the, I'll call it weight, as well as the distance. Energy doesn't weigh anything, so it actually teleports without an additional weight cost. That's the most efficient way to teleport things. But for right now, we'll deal with it because we're not too far from the base. Note that to do teleportation, you need all of the energy available for the teleport up front or it won't work. Once you do have enough energy, just give it a redstone signal and it will send it. Though when using personal tanks, you'll need to make sure it's set to accept and receive fluids. You can burn raw oil by itself if you really want, but if you want to get the most out of its energy, you're going to have to convert it into fuel. This is where the refinery comes in. The refinery takes buildcraft power, or it takes RF. So like the pump, you're going to have to convert it. Once you do though, you can send that energy into a liquid fuel generator, and it will make power from the fuel. 30 EU per tick, which is pretty good. The only thing better than that is ethanol, but right now I don't really feel like making ethanol, so fuel it is. Hint, I'll be using this fuel technology later for something important. You could use buildcraft fluid pipes, but they kinda suck. Well, actually, I guess they don't suck very well, and that's kind of the problem, isn't it? So Galacticraft fluid pipes are far better, though they can be a bit buggy sometimes from what I've seen. I guess there's not really a truly good type of pipe in this pack. What do I plan on using all this power for though? Well, I think I can technologically enhance this enchanting system. By making a machine that enchants things for me, I can greatly reduce the amount of XP I'm spending on things, and even re-roll enchantments on items that are already enchanted. The one downside to this is that I'm not really making nearly enough power to comfortably use this thing. This is intended for HV power use, and I'm only feeding it a few generators worth of LV. It works like the normal enchanting table though, except it requires books. It can be a bit pricey if you don't have automated books, or a place you can get a whole ton of them at once, but the end result is a truly useful machine. Not only can I enchant anything I want for a fraction of the experience cost, but I can even enchant my electric tools with this, which couldn't be enchanted in the normal enchanting table. The one caveat is that it requires double the bookshelves to work with the same efficiency as the normal enchanting table, so automation is key. Now, since the backpack doesn't work on my nanosuit boots of the Traveler, I'm going to need to use an energy crystal instead. This still does a decent job at charging my equipment, but its main use is for keeping the boots topped off. I have the backpack for my Omni tool. The boots do passively drain power, so I'm going to need to recharge them somewhat frequently. I've been experimenting with different ways of auto-shutting off the bore in case the inventory is trying to fills up. A comparator does do the job, but it's probably better to just void everything you don't want. An enchanted Thaumic pickaxe does do a very large area though, mainly useful for collecting diamonds. The only issue is all the lava. A handy feature of the electric enchanter is that you can manipulate what types of enchantments you get. For example, I can force 2 enchantments to appear on this crystal wing. I'm now required to get both mending and unbreaking 3 on it, which means I'll pretty much never have this one break, as I can always repair it. It might be worth keeping in mind these items that can only accept particular enchantments, as you can extract the enchantments from them later, and put them on other items. It's also quite nice being able to enchant my electric tools. It makes worrying about tool durability far less of a problem, with the added benefits that said electric tools bring. One of the decor blocks I have for this base is concrete. Concrete is made from gravel and sand as usual, so I'm going to automate production of both gravel and sand. Both of these can be made in the macerator. We've already seen cobblestone turn into sand before, and then smooth stone turns into gravel. It's cheap and easy to turn concrete powder into concrete though. All it needs to do is touch water, so I simply need a block breaker and a block placer. When the block falls and turns into concrete, it allows the redstone signal to transmit to the block breaker, and then that allows the block breaker to break the concrete and put it in the chest. Simple, yet effective. Of course, I need a timer on the placer. Speaking of moving into the new base though, I'd like to switch to logistics pipes. Project Red's pipes aren't terrible, they do the job fine, but I'd much rather use logistics pipes. It's just superior in pretty much every way. And because there's no applied energistics or anything, there's no up from here. I'll need a fair number of materials to get started on logistics pipes. It's primarily lapis, gold, diamonds, redstone, all that usual stuff, some copper, some iron. Make sure you have all of these things on hand when you're ready to get started. To list off all of the things you actually want to craft instead of the base ingredients, we'll need some programmers, a power junction, a program compiler, and a bunch of basic chips, FPGA, and advanced chips. And with all of that together, we'll eventually be able to start auto-crafting. But for right now, I want to hook up some basic logistics systems, kind of what we already have. You'll also need a 4th boot disk to get started. Think of it like installing the operating system onto your computer. Anything we compile and install will be saved to the disk, so don't worry about breaking the compiler. There's a good chance you won't even want to move it around, but right now I'm just putting it in a temporary home next to the power setup. I don't have all the wiring running through the base yet. There's a lot of waiting here, and I'm not going to show you all of it, because obviously that's incredibly boring for a YouTube video. Essentially, you have to unlock each different type of, I don't know, how do you put it, category of pipe stuff? You'll unlock tiers of things, different modules, etc. And then once those basic things unlock, all the sub-things unlock. I know things is very specific, but you kind of see what I'm doing. You sit there, you wait for the bar to go up, and once it's done, move on to the next thing. I want to get most of it out of the way right now, so I'm just going to keep running this while I do other stuff. Other stuff in real life, not in game. I can't get out of this GUI. First off, I'm an idiot. I just said I can't leave the GUI. I can, but you don't want to because it's going to be finished by the time you do something else. More importantly, let's talk about the programmers. So a lot of recipes for things, say different types of pipes or modules or other things, they require a programmer in the recipe. It only accepts the specific programmer that has been compiled with a program for the item you want to craft. And you will need to keep switching these programmers around. But if you have upstart materials, you can make a bunch of programmers, have them already preset to the right recipes, and eventually when we start automating things, we'll just have it automatically take care of itself. When I first played with this mod, I believe it was in the original FTB interactions, I absolutely hated this incarnation of it. Using these programmers for literally everything over and over was so tedious, and I wasn't automating things like I'm supposed to. It's been too long though, I can't remember what I had available to me at the time. But yeah, you compile the programmer to the recipe. Early on you can switch it around, but eventually you'll want to very quickly get into auto-crafting, which is kind of the point of the mod. Did I mention you're going to want a large number of pipes? You'll need both the unrouted kind and the basic kind, and this can get very expensive with diamonds. The way this stuff works isn't that complicated. You want to put down a provider pipe on any inventories you want to take items from. These are akin to the broadcasting chips from Project Red. A request table to request items from, and then make sure they're connected together with some type of the piping. Once you make a request, it will send things to the table. You can also increase it by stacks at a time, and it omits the first item from the request number. So if you hit the double plus, it will get it to 10 items first, then 20, rather than 11 that the Project Red pipes do. The triple plus will be 64. You can also use crafting recipes in this table, and if you click the buttons next to the crafting window, the tilde, that's the squiggly line, will request anything missing from the current recipe in the inventory of the request table, and the pluses will request 1, 10, or 64 items worth of recipe. In order to get auto-crafting, we're going to want some logistics crafting tables, some crafting pipes, and the pipe manager. You can shift-click recipes in like you would anywhere else, but you'll need to right-click on the crafting pipe with the pipe manager, and then click import to take the recipe from the table and put it into the pipe. There is a caveat with this. If there's something that doesn't get consumed in the recipe, you'll want to take it out of the pipe. it will leave the item in there, so you don't have to worry about that. You will end up with a very large number of these crafting tables though. I would make a lot of room for them, and preferably keep them very close to your item storage. You can then request any item available to be crafted in the table, and as long as you have the materials, it will go ahead and craft it and bring it to the request table like items you already have stocked. One thing you should note when laying out the pipes though is that every time there's an intersection, you need a basic logistics pipe, not the unrouted ones. The basic ones will tell the system, hey, send items this way, instead of just sending them wherever. It will be randomized otherwise. So unrouted pipes are for straight lines, basic pipes are for intersections, as well as something else we'll get to in a moment. There are some useful tools for assessing the state of your EU network. By right-clicking on a cable or machine and waiting a bit, then clicking on it again, it will tell you the amount of EU on average going into that block per tick, or going through it if it's a cable. For the teleporter, it will also give you a loose set of numbers to help you determine how much power is going to be used. I don't know what the exact formula is, but it at least tells you how many blocks away. For me, for a full tank, it's, I think it's about 800,000 EU. A couple of windmills will be fine, because I have to go through the stash of oil I already have before I send a new shipment. Just a quick little demonstration of what I was talking about before with the programmers and how you can't have them, stay in the recipe in the pipe. It works completely fine if you remove it from the pipe. Obviously it has to stay in the recipe though. We should really get to making a proper storage room though. A bunch of diamond chests will do the job for the time being, and anything I automate will have its own separate storage, so I have nothing to worry about with overclogging things. To make an inventory that can both be read and sent to, I need a provider pipe, of course, which will allow the inventory to be read and items to be extracted from it, as well as a basic logistics pipe. By right-clicking on the basic logistics pipe with the pipe manager, you can open the menu and make it the default route. You can also filter items that you want to send here, but the default route basically makes it a dump chest. If it sees an inventory and it doesn't have another place to send something, it will send it to these chests here. I think 12 diamond chests will be enough storage space for the nearby future. We'll eventually get to a point where we have so many resources that adding more diamond chests will be a simple feat. I have the entire other half of this room, and maybe even up more if I want. Over here I have what is effectively a main factory floor. I've moved the sand and gravel setups over here, and I'll have them run at base speed because I don't really need them to go fast. Hoppers can be kind of laggy, so I shouldn't use them all the time, and in their place I can use basic export upgrades. Basic export upgrades will output one item per craft that the machine does into an inventory in an adjacent direction that you configure. If you right-click on a block, it will set the opposite direction as the direction that the item goes. If you shift right-click, it will send it to that block face. So if you were to aim at the bottom of a block, you would right-click on it and it would set it to up. And if you were to shift right-click, it would set it to bottom. Well, that seems to about do it for the Cobbleworks. I know I have ugly pipes exposed in the ground. I'll get to fixing that later. I have cobble, sand, gravel, stone, and glass. All of them are hooked up with provider pipes, especially useful for all the glass I need when crafting. And I'm also using a machine buffer with the cobble upgrade in it to fill the inventory with cobblestone and put them into the drawer below. Or barrel. Same thing. I have my exchange focus already, so why am I making an exchanger? Well, this is when it comes in handy to know that certain enchantments can only appear on certain things. I'm tracking down Silk Touch. While pickaxes have about 3 billion different enchantments they can get, exchangers can only get the very basic ones. Fortune, Silk Touch, Mending, and Unbreaking. So I can force this to eventually get Silk Touch if I put in 3 books. Right now I'm only using 1 book, but I really should be using 3 to guarantee that I get either Fortune or Silk Touch. So now that I've rolled Silk Touch on my exchanger, what am I going to do with that? We're going to take a little detour into industrial foregoing to find out. To get started, I'll need some fluid extractors, and they can take the latex out of wood. They require RF energy, so I'll need a flux generator to convert, but once you place them down and place a log in front of it, it will start extracting fluid. You then also need a latex processing unit and some water to convert that into latex items. Combine those into plastic and we can make machines from industrial foregoing. I am not going to abuse that mod. It's too simplistic for me. I'm the person that used Railcraft to get some power around. I don't think I like doing things the simple way. I've already done it the simple way a billion times. With all of the pieces assembled, I can now make the enchantment extractor. This will take enchantments off of items and put them onto books. These books can then be reapplied to other items, so I can get enchantments on my equipment without having to do endless re-rolling. Obviously, you're going to need some form of supply of books if you want to keep doing all this enchanting, so I'd recommend either making a farm or finding a lot of books or whatnot. Now I can apply all of these books I wanted onto a diamond drill. It costs far more experience to do these anvil-style enchantments rather than just rolling the dice, but it's a surefire way to get a drill with fortune on it, or silk touch. Now why would I want a silk touch drill? What is that for? This is all for a brand new mining operation. I've tracked down a desert oil field that I had come across in prior travels. There's an absolute crap ton of oil below the surface here, and to save the hassle of teleportation, I can just do all the refining on site. So I've set up a pump, the windmills, and everything like that. It's not too far away from the base, but I still have to chunk load it, of course. It makes it much easier to get back and forth with these nanosuit boots of the Traveler and a jetpack. But this system is pretty self-sufficient. It will keep making fuel at a rate that's fast enough to keep itself running. I did the math. It's about 2.5 liquid fuel generators per refinery, though of course the refineries themselves are going to take a certain amount of power input. So it's really about 1.5 liquid fuel generators of power. It's 5 to 2, I guess, if you want to do it that way. You can use either a drill or the mining laser in the miner, but the drill will slow it down and use less power in exchange for having enchantments available. The miner itself is going to require a lot of inventory space, as well as the drill and some mining pipes and a scanner. Different types of scanners will do different things, but the largest area goes to the quarry scanner. It's the most set and forget of the types available to us. If you are using a finite inventory, obviously you're going to want to void the things you're not desiring, you know, like stone or sand or anything like that. So I've set up a simple filtered buffer and void chest that's constantly being ticked. Okay, constantly meaning like every X amount of seconds, but you get the point. As long as it has mining pipe, it will drill down, and a pump is supposed to allow it to pick up fluids if it runs into any, but I don't think it works in this version, so that might be a problem. But that's nothing our good old friend the Quarry Fixer can't fix. I'm just leaving the Quarry Fixer here for the time being, and if I ever run into a fluid issue, I can just clean it up. Technically, I don't need to keep them here because it should get rid of all the fluid in the area, but sometimes it doesn't work, so I'm keeping it here anyway. I did clear all of the oil in the area out first, though. You do need to manually raise the size of the miner though. Right-click with the scanner in your hand and you can make it go up all the way to 30 blocks. It will take far longer for it to reach bedrock, but we don't really care. At some point I'd like to run multiple of these at once, but we're nowhere near that capability. I guess I can also say that if you take out the drill or the scanner, it will start retracting all the pipes and put them in the inventory where it puts ore deposits. Because I now have some time on my hands, how about we make some better weaponry? By making a spell, I can give it a bolt attribute as well as a frost attribute. I think that'll be pretty good for taking on things in the nether. Okay, it actually won't because there's no frost damage bonus, but whatever. We're still going to make a spell that allows me to attack my foes with ice. They will be frozen to their core. Or well, I guess they'll just be dead. That works too. At this point, the mobs of the nether don't really stand a chance to me. I can even use looting to try and get some wither skeleton skulls, but it doesn't seem like I'm that lucky today. Being able to attack foes from a medium distance is nice, especially with no charge time like a bow would require. It also slows my foes, if that ever becomes relevant. Perhaps I'm ready to find the enemy base? I don't know yet. I guess the only way to find out is to go fight them, right? I've done some looking around to see if I can find the enemy base, and it seems like I'm getting kinda close. I feel it nearby. I'm not exactly sure what I feel, but I don't know, something with my Thaumic tools. Oh, hey, look, I found something. I don't know what this is, but I don't know, is it some type of enemy base? I better be careful when I go in. I'll have to be a little sneaky. Oh, well, I'm already getting attacked. Lovely. Alright, let's be careful. It doesn't look like anyone's here. That's interesting. Maybe I was over-prepared? Where am I? Oh my, what was this? Oh, there's some type of floating block. I can levitate. That's cool. What are these strange items? I don't know. I'll have to take them and maybe see what they are. Well, there's some Thaumcraft stuff around here. Oh, there's a journal. I wonder what's in it. Oh, and some other item. Well, if I look into the journal, let's see. So the rift has changed since I discovered it. It seems that natural rifts have stabilized with the outside environment. I have thrown some items into it, but it's not seemed to cause the rift to grow. I'm sure that I could amplify the rift just by adding more flux to the surrounding environment, but with such a rare specimen under my captivity, I would prefer to keep it intact. Artificial rifts are far more reliable and even show facets of the void to me. I have other locations to research the void further, but I will keep some samples of my research here to see if its proximity to the rift affects them. Huh, that's interesting. And concerning, quite frankly. It mentions the void, which tracks with these materials, but where is this rift? Is it nearby? I mean, I guess I haven't fully explored this tower. There's this entire underground area. It's a little bit of a dark tunnel. Is there something dangerous here? Maybe I should be on my guard. I'm not running into anything, which is strange and kind of eerie in a way. Nothing's here. Oh, as I get close to it, I kind of feel something in my gauntlet. Ugh. Well, what is this? This is some kind of... I'm not sure what it is. Can something go inside? Is this like a key to a door? Oh. You know, it kind of is a key to the door, and it just opened it. Huh. Whoa, so this is the rift. Fascinating. But also kind of scary at the same time. What do I do about this thing? Is it safe to touch? I guess so. Maybe it's inert. Maybe there are more dangerous rifts elsewhere. Like it said in the journal that artificial rifts are more dangerous. I'll have to scan what I see here and remember this for later. I did some quick experiments and it doesn't seem like items have any interaction with it, yet it's affecting the surrounding terrain, which is interesting. I'd better leave and go home. It's probably for the better if I leave everything where it was. Make sure that nothing is found, you know? Oh, well, I used that key and it didn't give it me back. I guess I'm just gonna have to get out of here. No time to steal any loot. Rather than worry about all this magic nonsense, I feel a little more at ease just watching the quarry do its thing. It's already gone down a fair amount of the way, though it has taken quite a while, many hours actually. But the loot that I'm getting is pretty good so far. It'll eventually reach the bottom, or at least the first piece of bedrock it finds. I do have to come babysit it every once in a while to make sure no fluids or anything are in the way, as well as no rocky hives, as the quarry only mines blocks that the tool can mine, and so the drill can only mine dirt and stone. I'd like to wait until the quarry is done before I process any of its resources, so let's do some other automations around the base while we wait. Logistics chassis are a useful way to have multiple different things going on from a single block face. You can put modules in and they'll do various different things. Crafting modules are useful for machine automation because you can't actually do it normally with these industrial craft machines. This is where the satellite pipe comes in. It acts as an alternative location to insert items into the machine. You only have 3 slots to work with, so be careful. But you can send the inputs for a recipe into another block face, or somewhere really far away, like at the beginning of a production line, if you really want to. The crafting module itself has to be at the output. This also applies to crafting pipes, and it will send things to the designated input. Chassis are useful because you can have multiple recipes going into one machine, otherwise you'd need one machine per recipe, and that gets very cluttered very fast. Not as many as even the most basic of applied energistics setups with interfaces and pattern providers and such, but we'll deal with what we have. As for your first recipes, I'd recommend refined iron and 3 basic types of chips from logistics pipes, because you're going to need a whole ton of those. Okay, I basically just skipped to the end when the quarry is already finished. This took many real-life hours, just to let you know. Like, it took over 10 hours for this to finish. But the profits are very good. The enchantments on the drill help make it go faster. If you have efficiency, it'll mine quicker. But this is basically a full diamond chest worth of ores, as well as a lot of a gold chest worth of ores. Now, not all of those are super useful, you know, a lot of it's coal, but think about how much we can do with this post-processing. It's going to result in like 6 stacks of gold, an uncountable amount of copper, more than 64 stacks worth of redstone. You get the picture. I'll start running it again soon, but between episodes. Need something going on while I'm doing building. I'm not going to be using a full set of tier 2 machines in this room, as that would end up taking way more power than I really want to be using. To compensate for that, I'll just make overclockers automatically. I've set up a small system here to make water buckets, and then the system will be able to read those. This is where a pipe called the supplier pipe comes in handy. It makes sure the attached inventory always has a specific amount of a type of resource in it, Or sometimes if you just want to send all of something somewhere, it'll do that too. Like, there's no reason for me to hold on to ores. I want them processed as ingots, so I'll just send all of the ingots into the ore processing setup. Speaking of, I have that going too. I'm setting up a separate output for pretty much everything we get that I want to process with industrial craft machinery. There are a few things that are left over, like the Project Red ores, Galactic Craft Silicon, and some other things that I don't really need, like, a lot. I mean, I guess you could argue that about aluminum. Also, some of the things I have extra recipes because of Dioptra, which basically adds ore processing recipes for everything, so you might not have everything I have, but I think the only thing that has a chance of being affected by that is aluminum, and I think that did have compatibility at the start, so I'm not sure. And something else to keep in mind is that because the basic export upgrade only exports one item at a time, you're going to want 2 in each macerator, as each macerator produces 2 of its output. If it's more than that, it's kind of expensive, so I just use the hopper on those things like redstone and coal and such. The oil processing in the base can't really handle sustaining itself because I haven't automated teleportation of oil into the base yet. I'd like to wait until I move into a separate spot in order to do that. So for the time being, I'm just going to give a dedicated power supply to the refineries. Simple, cheap way to do that. Well, I guess it's not that cheap, but it is simple, is to just use a solar panel. But I can use 8 of them and combine them with a low voltage transformer to make a low voltage solar panel, which outputs 8 EU per tick instead of the 1 that it was doing on its own. Might also add a windmill just to, help it out a bit if it's raining. Now let's address the situation about the ugly pipes in the floor. Obviously, there are tons of pipes everywhere, and they are in the way. We can deal with this by using chisels and bits. This breaks blocks down to the pixel level. This breaks blocks down into a 16 by 16 by 16 array, which is the default resolution of the vanilla Minecraft texture pack. If you're using a mod pack, it's still going to be the same, it's just going to take little chunks instead of one individual pixel. You can set the mode that you want to use the chisel in, and it will tell you what level it's breaking things down as. You'll also want a bag to store all the bits in, otherwise they individually stack, and it gets very, very cluttered when you have hundreds and hundreds of stacks of these tiny little bits. I believe the keybind is Alt. By default, if it's not, just look for the chisels and bits keybinds. And you can decide what shape you want to make. In my case, I want to make planes, because I'm just making covers. It can be a little annoying making them, because of how it orients itself. I'm not quite used to it yet myself, but generally speaking, I can use these to cover all of the logistics pipes, because it works on a pixel by pixel level. To wrap things up, I'll make some power storage for the base, as well as a charge pad. The charge pad will allow me to stand on it, and it will charge my items in my inventory with its internal energy buffer. Pretty much it means I don't have to use the GUI on the MFEs anymore, and higher tier ones will go faster as you would expect. Do be careful when you're working with voltages though. If you hook up a medium voltage output like an MFE to a bunch of low voltage machines, you're going to cause a lot of problems. So follow typical machine care protocols. That's all I wanted to go over today though. Big steps in automation today. Very important stuff for later on. Thank you for watching. This has been Pick. I'm glad to have seen you, and I hope to see you again.